Hey, good afternoon to all. This is Rabbi Sachs from the Chai Center, and welcome to the Chai Academy. Chai Academy is a place where, even during COVID and beyond, one can study the Judaism and appreciate the depth that Judaism has to offer, and we various different topics that we've gone through over the past few months. It kind of started when COVID hit, but by all means, it will not end when COVID ends. Please God. To see just a list of classes that are available and have already been recorded, one can go on to thechaicenter.com/academy, and there you'll have your choice plethora of different topics of interest. So we have been talking about Maimonides. Maimonides wrote, once again, hey Eileen, good afternoon, he wrote 14 books. He wrote many books, but in this book in particular, it's 14 separate books, and all in one volume or a couple of volumes. It depends how it's printed. And the idea was Maimonides wanted to go through the entire Torah, the laws, whether they're applicable now, whether we live in Israel, don't live in Israel, we have a temple, don't have a temple. And he just goes through everything. And his goal was to go from soup to nuts, A to Z. And his first book deals with philosophy. What is it that a Jew believes? What is it that a person believes? Because, as he points out, Yesod HaYesodas, the foundations of all foundations, is that you can't go to step 2. You can't go to B before you've really developed A. What is A? A is what is God, and what is creation, and what does God want from us. Now, the details of what God wants from us, that's in his other books. But this book is first sort of defining God. And God forbid you can't define God, but he spoke about various things, and angels and different types of creations, etc. And now we're holding by the 4 elements, which the last class that we spoke, was that there are 4 elements, and these 4 elements are in everything. Every part of creation has 4 elements. It doesn't matter if it's a stone, and it doesn't matter if it is a human being. It's all comprised of 4 elements. There have to be these 4 elements, and just some have more of the other. So, for example, the 4 elements are earth, fire, air, and water. So clearly a stone has more earth than it has fire, and clearly it has so that's a stone. But a human being has a lot more, also has earth, because we know when we pass we go back to earth, but clearly we have a lot more fire in us than a stone has. There's likewise every single aspect of creation have these 4 elements, and as he makes very clear, these elements are not they don't have a conscious, they don't have a way of thinking. It's not like the angels, and it's not like it's not like he says the planets, etc., have an identity, they have a knowledge, they understand there's God, and they understand that there's this aspect of something controlling them. These 4 elements have no consciousness. They just don't, but they do exist. And he says that, and this is where we left off last time. Thank you, Zev. That when an entity ceases to exist, either passes or it just, just, and it's over, it will decompose. And when it decomposes, these four elements that came together will actually dissipate. But it says you won't have four piles: earth, fire, air, and water. You won't have it, but rather it will change into something else, and change into something else, and change into something else. And then it will completely decompose. And he says these four elements are in a constant state of flux, and which means that the portion of the earth, for example, which is closer to the water, can change and dissolve into water. But a portion of the water that is close to the wind, for example, it could change and evaporate and become wind. A portion of the wind close to the fire goes through metamorphosis and becomes fire. So, and likewise, a fire close to the wind goes through a metamorphosis and changes and contracts and becomes wind, etc. He says the elements themselves, just a portion, but the elements themselves will remain rigid. There are these four elements, and the reason why they change is because the world is in a constant state of evolution. Now, Judaism believes wholeheartedly in creationism, that God created the world, but would be foolish to say that God did not create a world that evolves. It does evolve. Things change, right? And we are in a constant state of flux. I think that's so. It's not that the world doesn't evolve and things don't evolve. And hey, even our minds evolve, right? 5 years ago, I definitely thought different. 20 years ago, I definitely thought very different, right? Etc. I was brought up in Brooklyn as an example, and I left Brooklyn to come to Long Island. When I came back to Brooklyn, and I'm giving you an example, and I hear some racial slurs, whereas in the past, it would have been okay. I don't like it, but then when I come back, and I've been out of it for a while. I'm not saying that all of Brooklyn's racist. I'm just saying when in Long Island, you definitely, people are, I don't know, in my circles, but people are people. When I came back, I was aghast. I had pinpricks. I didn't feel right because I had evolved. That's my point. And people do evolve, and things evolve. So God did create this concept called evolution. Things do evolve, but it was created by God, as opposed to those who say there is no God, it's all evolution. So, Judaism is a little bit more rational, that there's a God, but there's also things evolve. Now, the interesting thing is that a human being is also created out of these four elements, right? So you have earth, fire, air, and water that comprise us, right? Now, it's brought down in the books of Kabbalah and Hasidic thinking, is that these four elements actually make us who we are. These four elements could be something that we need to temper, and we need to change. We need to evolve. So the way it's explained is that we have, let's take the element of fire. We have fire within us. Everybody has fire within us. Some people have more fire and some people have less fire, right? And once again, I don't know amounts. It's not, it could be minuscule, etc. But more fire and less fire. So the person that has more fire may be more of a passionate person just by birth. just by birth. Fire. So the person is passionate. The person has shows their emotions, wears the emotions on their sleeve. It could be a grown man that cries because their emotion, and they're constantly churning, etc. And and by the way, and every one of these elements in a human being, not necessarily in others, but in human being, because we have free will, because we have free will, is each one of these things could be used for good or for bad. So the element of fire, and the good of fire is clearly that you have passion, you're alive, you're not a schmata, you're not just this, right? You're burning constantly. You're up and about and awake and alert, and you move with alacrity, etc. Fire constantly is fire that waits for nobody. Just etc. The negative of fire clearly is anger. Right? When a person gets angry, their blood boils. The boils is fire, and their face turns red, and they are completely enraged, incensed, and they think about themselves at that moment, and it's just not a pretty scene. So our job is to take this fire and channel it. You got this element of fire. Use it for good. Don't use it for bad. Right? Use it for good and don't use it for bad. So therefore, because perhaps, give me a second. I just got an emergency text. One second, yeah. So because, so you're given it. Now you got to work with it, and it's your job. It's your job to hi Anthony. It's your individual job to temper your fire. It's your job to flick your bick, make sure you have fire. It's your job to really if you don't, you gotta have fire. You gotta have fire. You just have to make sure that you use it for the right thing. An example: your child is running to the street. There's a little toddler, and he's running to the street, and there's cars there, right? You can't tell the child, "Come here, sweetie. Come here, sweetie." I mean, you can when he's 20 feet away from traffic, but what about when he's 10 feet away? What about when the child is 6 feet away, 5 feet away, right? Your element of fire kicks in, and all of a sudden you yell, "Get back here!" Right? That is fire. That is fire. Now, that's okay. But to get angry and lose your cool and blow your top, these are all words that allude to fire, is not okay. Is not okay. So, now, a person could say, "Well, God created me like this. He created me with a lot of fire. I have fire, right? So it's not my fault I have fire." The answer is you got free will. You're able to temper the fire. You're able to, and people go to therapy for this. People go to therapy, right? Anger management, right? What do? They're taught put dots all over the place and count to 10, and you're able to control this fire. But some fire is good, some fire is bad. The air, right? Air lacks substance. So negative of air is basically wasting time. Instead of getting the project done, you end up just becoming an airhead, and you stare into space, or you join a session that around the water cooler, and you're not getting things done, and you let the day, right, and you just, right, and you talk about things that lack substance, right? You it's just not a, you're not being productive, right? But the positive of air is that you're able to leave your work at your threshold of your house, that you don't bring it in, and that there is a time where you have to say, okay, this is heavy. Now I'm going to go home, and I'm not going to bring all this stuff that I had. I have the ability to let it go. And I think it was on Friday. So I visited a hospital. I visited a hospice, and there was a couple other things going on. It was heavy. But I can't bring it home with me, because then I would just go to bed. So you just have to tap into, just say, okay, so now I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it dissipate, and I'm going to walk into my house. So air, once again, and there's so many other examples of air. Water is, first of all, is the ability to be fluid, the ability to be flexible. Water, if you block it here, it will go here. Water is cool. Water can help you temper the fire. Water, is the natural temperature of water is cool. The natural temperature of blood is warm, right? So water can calm the blood from boiling, etc., etc. Negative water is that, and by the way, water is very calming, right? And we know that, right? You go on vacation, where's the most expensive houses, right? It's all by the water, because water is extremely calming. There's something about water. Water is blessed, that it is just a magnificent place, right? But water, the problem with water, as is explained, the water, you can be too flexible, right? You can be no backbone. You can just, water bends when it has to bend. So the negative of water is that you cannot, Torah is water. You're correct. Torah, and they explain why Torah is water. Someone asked, is because water comes from a lofty place and comes down to a low place. It's still the same water, right? It's just maybe a different temperature, a degree or two. So Torah comes from on high, comes down to this world. It's still the same Torah. That's why they compare Torah to water and not to fire. Which fire, the further away you get from fire, eventually you won't even feel it. So water has is too flexible, and there's got to be something in between. You have to be and you're given another gift called earth that helps you be a little bit more straight and centered and inflexible. So it depends what you have more of. So we take earth, right? The positive of earth is that you're grounded, you're practical, right? You're not flighty. You're not an airhead. You take responsibility, and you do what you need to do. The negative of earth, of course, is that it's earth is heavy. It's sloth. Earth is synonymous with heaviness and melancholy, or laziness would be part of earth, right? Earth is a slow-moving thing. Earth, it doesn't, it shifts. It does, but not quickly. Not quickly. Of course, unless it's a landslide. But generally speaking, the earth moves, an inch. These what's it called, stalagmites, and, right? They say, oh yeah, every 100 years it moves an inch. So Earth is can be slow, but Earth also sometimes you could be moving too fast. Water. What happens when you're caught in a riptide? Thing moves fast. Earth slows you down. Sometimes you need to ponder. Sometimes you need to reflect. Sometimes you need to sleep on it and say, whoa, this is too fast. I'm not signing this at all until I really think through it, etc. It is a um, earth, and each one of these elements has a lot to offer. Each one of these elements is also a chance to challenge, right? And there's no free ride. Everybody's going to be challenged. Everybody's going to be challenged, right? You may be challenged in all four. You may be challenged in two. You may be challenged in one, etc. But the job, because human beings have free will, our job is to rise up to the challenge, overcome the challenge. First of all, be aware of the challenge, rise up to the challenge, overcome the challenge, and make it second nature, so you don't lose your temper, right? So you're not lazy, you're not sloth, and you're not depressed, because that's what earth is also. It's very earthy, very earthy. So these four elements are in everything, but in the human being, they really, really make a difference. Now, who decides? Who decides how much earth you should get, how much fire you should get, how much water you should get, right? And who decides that? So that is actually, the decision is left to God. That is what we call the godly, godly input, right? Godly input. What type of challenges you have, what type of what type of personality you are. Of course, a lot of it can be inculcated from birth, but and as you grow, your parents can send you over the deep end, or the parents can drag you up or bring you up, right? Of course, but we're talking about innately. So a person can't say, this is who I am. This is me, right? But rather you have to say, okay, I got a character flaw. I have free will. I got to work on it. I have a gift. I have a talent. I'm able to do X, Y, and Z, right? Because of your earth, fire, air, and water, you got to offer it to the world. You must not hold back. So yes, everything comes from it. Talent comes from it. Natural talent, etc., comes from it, and it's the same idea. By the way, it's the same idea of smart, IQ, right? You can have a kid be born with 140 IQ, and you can have somebody be born with a 95 IQ. This is God's decision, really God's decision. So there's having said that it's God's decision, and it's nature, because it's innate. Judaism basically says that nature is irrelevant, and nurture, whether it's by parents or personal nurture, trying to improve oneself, that is more relevant than anything else. So you can't blame it on nature, right? You can't blame it on nature. So now why can these be changed? How can these be tempered if they're godly gifts? Right? If they're godly gifts, why and how can they be tempered? They shouldn't be. They should be steady, and they should be set. If God gave you earth, then how can you change it? So the answer is, as another gift that God gave is the gift of change. Is the gift of not being stuck where you are. It's a gift, right? So while God gave you these four elements, God also gave you the gift to change, to adapt, to evolve, to go from negative thinking to positive thinking, from earth thinking to more air thinking, to go from anger to passion. It's a gift that we're given, right? And there's many gifts, such godly gifts that we are given, but that is an extremely powerful one, is that we do not have to remain stuck. Ever, ever. We don't have to remain stuck. We have the gift that we can rise above anything and everything, and change, and change. There's another gift from God that coincides with this, and that is that God gave us another gift, and that gift is that mind over matter. That as human beings, as opposed to animals, we have, and because of free will, we have the ability not to act on every single thing that comes our way, but rather to think first. That's the way we're created. So we don't have, we have a certain level of instinct, but we don't always have to work with our instinct. We don't always have to give in to our instinct. So if our instinct is to yell at the waiter, right, we don't have to. We don't have to. We can think it through and say, okay, it's a very busy place, whatever, and so tip's gonna be smaller, etc. But you don't have to yell. You don't have to lose your temper, etc. And that's why I say it's part and parcel, because you can think things through. You can think things through. Some people overthink. That's part of Earth, to be honest. The overthinkers, they just they have a lot of Earth, and they overthink everything. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. So the gifts of the elements God gave us, the gifts to adapt and change and not be stuck in one place. And another gift is that God gave us the ability to have mind over matter and really think things through. Another gift, while we're talking about gifts, God gave us the gift of the ability to love. Right? So we have it innately that we can love God, love our spouse, love your rabbi, please. Right? It's a gift that we have the ability to really love somebody else like ourselves. And what a tremendous gift that is. And you see it, by the way, you see when you see these couples that have this magical marriage, right? And they really love their spouse like they love themselves. It's godly, it's majestic, it's beautiful. And that's another gift that God gave us, the ability to love somebody just as much, or in the case of our kids, even more than ourselves. If there are any questions, now's a good time. That it is a lot. I gave you a lot to think about, a lot to ponder. And once again, if you have questions, you can always email me, rabbi@thechaicenter.com. And if you want to review this class, you can always find it on thechaicenter.com/academy. Until we meet again, God bless you all.